Howdy do, everybody, and welcome to another exciting, flaming episode of Radiorama. I'm not sure what's flaming about it. Sometimes the radios I work on do go up in flames, so it could be true. We have a Philco model 39-7. Philco would name their models first with the year, so that means this is from 1939. It is a... How many tubes we got here? It is basically an all-American 5. And what I like about this thing is most of these are usually hot chassis, meaning there's no power transformer. Not so with this one. This one has a power transformer in there. When I got it, it has schematic watered up in it. This makes me wonder if someone's worked on it. We've got a newer plug. Interestingly enough, like practically almost all RCA tubes, and they look like they're from the same era. Maybe not. We've got one here that's probably from the 40s, maybe early 50s even. We got one Sylvania, and the tube lineup is as follows. 6A7 75, or 78, 75, 41, and what is that? I can't tell. 84. That's probably the rectifier. And the output is the 41. And then we've got our detector tubes on the left. I think it's probably a radio that was sold locally because we got all the San Francisco Bay Area stations where they that seems to be pushing in a little bit more than it should. So I'm going to do a test fire, see if the thing actually works. I hope it's not recapped. I was kind of looking forward to this, but if it's recapped, this won't be much of an episode. All right, let's try it out. All right, it does kind of work.
This just takes the snapshot in time when you have $1 million of cash inside.
Well, we got a hum going on there. That could indicate either all or some of the original electrolytic caps are still in there. But there's not going to be any problem solving on this one per se, because it does work. I have to be real careful about losing these little paper guys. I sure don't want those to fall out of there because that's part of the set's history. Alright, let's take it apart and see what's going on underneath the hood. Well, it has been recapped, but whoever did this... look at this electrolytic right here. It's swollen up like a fat whale. That's probably almost assuredly the wrong voltage. That thing is probably beat to smithereens. What is this? 160 volts. Surely is not right. That cannot be right. Let's see what the original electrolytics say up top here. Yeah, 12 microfarads, 450 volts. Jesus. I'm amazed it didn't just automatically blow up as soon as I turned that on. That's like 3 or 4 times more than it should be. And interestingly to note here, this capacitor is not going to chassis ground either. It's sitting on a little phenolic wafer. So we need to replace both of those guys. The other thing that has not been done here is, you see this guy? This plastic thing. These are called Philco bakelite blocks. And this one only has one. Some of them have several. That is the across the line cap. And that's no good. That needs to be replaced with a safety cap. I've also got a resistor here that looks kind of roasty. I'll need to look up on the schematic where that goes. But, you know, not a whole hell of a lot going on in this thing. There's only like a smattering of capacitors. Usually, sometimes you'll have less capacitors in a transformer-powered set because they're not having to do as much filtering per se, because you've got clean power coming in directly from the transformer. And there's no two-line, direct connection like you would on a, hot chassis set. So we need to replace both of these electrolytics. and then we're going to drill out. I'm going to show you the lazy way of replacing these Bakelite blocks. Now, it does look like maybe I've got a little wear around that screw. Maybe it was restuffed. I doubt it. If the person that did this thought it was a wise idea to put a undervalued electrolytic, it's probably safe to say they probably didn't replace that Bakelite block. Most people don't because they don't want to deal with them. But they should not be left in circuit because those are old. It's filled with tar and got nasty little paper caps inside that are no good. All right, so we got both of those electrolytics replaced, and I cleaned up some of the mess. There was a bunch of extra wiring. Curious what that looks like inside there. Of course, it's hard to do this one hand. Crap. Let me put the phone down. Let's stop filming. We'll take a look at it after I peel it off. I'm amazed that this isn't actually swollen. But it's hard to get this in the camera. That looks like where it might have steamed off its innards. Whatever. All right, I'm going to show you what you can do to save yourself from the pain in the butt. You know what? There's hardly anything holding this that was attached to this thing. I only got like this. This and the incoming AC line, which I've already clipped. Hell, usually I don't take these apart, but I think I can on this one since it's easy to get at. So I'm going to unbolt it from the chassis and dig it out. All right, we're going to melt the tar out of there with the wrong method. My wife gets on my case about her using her hairdryer on stuff, so I'm not allowed to use it anymore. I'm too lazy to go buy one myself. So there's a bunch of tar in there. Whew! It's stinking. It's not a nice smell. So we're going to heat it up a little bit until it gets soft, and then I'll dig it out of there. All right, so that is this guy cleaned out, and here's what was in it. Took a little more effort digging it out of there, and now my garage kind of stinks like tar. So what you can do if you want to be nice and neat is you can solder 2 new caps inside of here, and then you won't have them showing up above. That's super important to some people. But the way this works is we have 2 .01 caps, 0.01 UF, and they share a common ground, which is this case a chassis ground. So we have one lead of one of the capacitors here, the other one there, both of them here. And I'm going to install some safety caps inside, and then we'll reinstall this, and I'm going to do a test fire of the set to make sure that we're restored working order. It'll probably be a lot happier now that it doesn't have a capacitor that was beat to smithereens. Turns out I was wrong about the cap. There's only one. But here's the safety cap installed. Can't see it from the top. Ta-da! It's also, I assume, the wrong value. Usually it's 0.01, but this calls for a 0.006 microfarad cap. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference, and I'd rather it be a safety cap, so I'm going to reinstall and test. And if it works, so be it. If not, I guess I'll have to replace it with a different cap. But for now, we're just going to put it back in the circuit and give it a test fire. All right, well, we got the cap reinstalled, and I also got some reproduction fabric clothed power cord so it looks more authentic. Also installed a safety fuse. This goes between goes in basically in the AC incoming line. So if something goes haywire with the transformer or something, it's going to blow that fuse first. I ran out of fuse holders, so I had to make my own using this terminal strip. So let's give it a whirl. See what happens. It appears my pilot light is also out. I see filament, so will it work better?
Las Vegas, Nevada. Roll it.
Folks, you need diverse voices to write.
Read tech.
Debuted at #1 on Billboard's mainstream rock.
At its core, what makes Blue unique is
Sure, to diversifying the marketing industry.
starting 9.
I don't know why that sounds tinny. There's nothing wrong with the speaker. It's got plenty of movement. I don't know. A lot of times these sound like crap unless they're in the cabinet. The cabinet actually serves as a resonant device for including or improving the fidelity. That might be the case here. Good news is we're working, and that cap is clearly doing what it's supposed to do. And, well, 0.01 seems to be working okay. So what we need to do is clean out the volume pot, because clearly that was kind of noisy and scratchy. Need to oil and lubricate the tuning mechanism. Probably use some contact cleaner on these contacts. I'm going to clean the chassis just for the hell of it. And I'm also going to run an audio in, which on this set will be easy because we're dealing with a transformered set. We don't have to worry about putting in an isolation transformer because it's already isolated. Alrighty, we're well on our way to getting this done. This has been one of the lesser complicated projects I've had in a while, but you know, we need those every once in a while to keep us sane. Alright, now we're going to start working on the cabinet. And one of the first things I noticed is even though the finish is in great shape, the bottom trim, which is brown paint, is coming off. And so what I'm going to do, since my wife ain't here, I'm going to use some of her acrylic paints to match that color and reapply it. And since it's water-based, it'll dry real quick. Then I can get on with cleaning up the rest of this finish. As far as the chassis, I did install a new antenna wire since the original was pretty rotten. And the other thing I'm going to have to do to remind myself is that one end of this cone is coming off the frame, so I need to glue that down because it was vibrating as I was playing. So first things first, let's mix the color. I haven't taken painting classes in years, but I think I'm going to mix a little bit of brown, a little bit of black. It looks like it's kind of a warmish brown, so put just a little bit of orange in there. I don't know. We'll see if my artiste skills are still up to par. Alright, so first of all, I put a bunch of wood glue around this cone here. Yuck. Anyway, I think it's important to use glues for their unintended purposes, and I find that wood glue works really well for speakers for some reason. As far as the paint, I think it actually turned out okay. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect match, but I think if I didn't tell anybody I'd done this, they might not even know. So I'm gonna let that dry, let the glue dry in the speaker thing, and then I'll add the audio input, and then clean up this cabinet with my favorite products, Howard's and Old English. By the way, I'm doing this for my brother. I'm de-rusting some, they call them brace drills or arm brace drills. You know, we all have our weird hobbies, and my brother seems hell-bent on being in this hobby where he uses no power tools. So yes, I'm helping him drill even slower. Anyway, back to the radio. It looks like this is drying quite well. And what I also did was I added the audio input feature. We have an incoming audio line. I'm going to glue this in place, by the way, so it doesn't chafe or move around. And then I have my right and left channels going through two 90-something ohm resistors. Those two ends terminate together, and that goes to the top of the volume pot, which is the same line that has your incoming radio frequency signal, and then the bottom is the negative. Now, the cool thing about when you have a transformer set is you don't have to add a switch, and you don't have to add an isolation transformer. The reason you don't have to add a switch is because the incoming audio from your device is going to be strong enough to overpower the RF signal, and so that'll cut it out immediately, and you'll get clean audio coming through. So again, transformer sets are way the hell easier to add an audio input feature, which is as soon as this guy showed up, it's like, I'm taking that home. This is going to be a lot easier. So we're almost done with this thing. I do need to, again, go over the cabinet and get that all cleaned up, and then we'll put her back together and give her a test. All right, so we got our audio running through it now. Got my little Bluetooth thingy going, and again, it cancels out the radio signal. All right, and even though the glue's not set, I got rid of my rattling sound with the cone. And so now I'm going to wait for a little while for more of that acrylic paint to dry on the cabinet and bring it back in here, and we'll start working on that. All right, now it's time to work on the cabinet, and I'm using one of my favorite products of all time, which is called Old English. And no, it is not malt liquor, it's furniture restoring juice. I'm not sure what's in it, but it sure as hell works good. So see how this is kind of, we've got a little bit of dryness in the finish. It looks a little uneven. If we apply this, it will slowly kind of bring back that original color and also fill in all the areas where it was dried out. And I usually put it on there quite thick because I want it to soak into that finish and kind of like even out the appearance. Doing this one-handed is not super easy, but you get the idea. You can always see what a difference that makes. And I hate refinishing radios unless I absolutely have to. Because once you refinish a radio, it's never really going to look, in my opinion, I don't know, like it stops being a radio that looks like it's, well, I don't know. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'd prefer an original finish, even if it's not perfect, or over a completely new finish. I don't know. I kind of like the radio. It has a little bit of character in it. Shows a few battle scars. Because this thing's been on the planet for 80-something years. So the fact that it survived at all, and it's in rather nice original condition, is pretty nice. So I'll go over the whole thing with it. Let it sit for a few minutes. Wipe off the excess. And then we'll go over it with some Carnauba car wax. And what that'll do, this came from the factory pretty glossy. And over the years, of course, it's, abraded, faded. We can bring that back by just buffing it out. Might use some plastic polish on this escutcheon as well. Not escutcheon, dial cover. Whew! You can tell it's a lazy Sunday afternoon and I'm, whatever. All right, so we'll do that and then let it dry and come back with some car wax. Well, after applying this stuff and realizing that, after I wax it, this is going to be a little shiny. The paint I added here is quite dull looking and it's more noticeable. So I'm going to add some semi-gloss water-based polyurethane to this to kind of bring up the sheen a little bit so it'll match the appearance of the rest of this. So I'm just going to brush it on one layer, let that dry, let this oil or whatever Old English is made out of soak in, buff it off, and then apply the Carnauba car wax. All right, now that we've let this soak in for a little bit and I wiped off the excess, it's time to go to town with Carnauba car wax, the paste kind. And we're just going to really work it in there. There's a bunch of shit on top of this cabinet. These little spot things. I'm not sure what they are. But I'm hoping I can buff those off of there. Because that would really stink if those are permanent. But this takes quite a bit of elbow grease. And so take your time. Sometimes it takes, I don't know, like 3 or 4 applications repeatedly of this to finally start bringing back your shine. Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's like someone spilled something on it. Might have to go with a mild abrasive, like a plastic polish, to get that off. We'll see. All right, well, my fingers are sore. Whatever that was on this top here, I think was acidic, because it was actually physically eating into the finish. So I had to buff this out until they became less apparent. I wasn't able to get rid of all of it. If you look real closely, you can kind of see these little dents here. That's what remains of the whatever that was etching into the surface. But the good news is I got it to basically be like a mirror finish. This is how this was supposed to have looked like from the factory. I've noticed a lot of people when they refinish stuff like this, they'll put a satin finish on it. That's not how a lot of these came. A lot of them came with a super glossy finish. That was pretty popular. Polish the Bakelite knobs. You do not want to clean Bakelite. I can't stress that enough. Don't be tempted to take those over to the sink and scrub the crap out of them, because you'll lose the original casting, which gives them their gloss. So now that this is all buffed out. I even cleaned the interior. It's time to put it back together again, and we can call this one done. All right, we got it all back together again. Anyway, it seems like it's working quite well. As with all electronics that I restore, I'm going to let it run for a few hours just to make sure that anything that's inside that's now all sealed up, once it reaches absolute maximum operating temperature, that nothing's going to thermally break down. But I must say, this is a good survivor. It's a good example of a typical period Philco All-American 5, except with the transformer, which is, again, kind of nice. So another one is done. Another radio. This marks radio number 80 that has been restored. That will go to our future upcoming show next month. It'll be the first time we've had a show in a while because of the stupid never-ending pandemic. So hopefully we'll get one in before, who knows, another awful variant shows its ugly head. But in the meantime, if you like what you saw and got a kick out of this, make sure and press that like button. You can leave comments down below. I'll try to get to them. Sometimes I'm busier than sometimes I'm busy at work and I can't get to all of them, but just know that I appreciate you guys watching. And until the next time something comes across the workbench, I'll see you guys next time. Adios.